I'm the Oregon State Marine Board Outfitter Guide Program Coordinator. Current time is 2:06, and we're going to call this meeting to order. The Guide Advisory Committee is now called to order. This is a public meeting, but the committee will not be requesting or receiving any public comment or testimony on any item of today's agendas. The Guide Advisory Committee does not have the authority to make rules or statutory changes to Marine Board administration. Therefore, no public comment will be heard by the committee. If you wish to raise items for discussion, please contact one of the committee members or the agency contact Jennifer Cooper. So let's get started. First item on my agenda is approval, actually just attendance. I'm just going to call off names, and if you're here, please say yes. Cliff Ajos, Cody Cole, Bill Monroe Jr., Jason Schultz, Mia Shepard is not able to make it today, Jeff Keatley, Corey Marr.
Yes.
Jeff Miller, Brian Paulson,
present by video.
Grant Sheely,
Yes.
Megan Selvig, Jack Craven,
Yes.
Val Early,
Yes.
Joe. I have Joe Dezo down here. Sergeant Dezo for the OSP will be joining us later. So I'm hopeful that we'll have more participants fall in as we as the meeting gets going. I have somebody that keeps calling, and I hope I don't have the caller ID, so I'm hoping it's not a GAC member. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting on January 10th. Did everybody get a chance to download those or check them out? I know most of you online right now did not attend that meeting, so you wouldn't have much input as far as any corrections. Val, did you get a chance to see anything?
I did. I took a look at those. They look great, Cyndi, as usual.
Okay, great. Well, thanks to Naomi taking all that information. So I'll just circle back to that at the end of the meeting just to see if anybody had any comments or changes needed before we approve them. A renewal update, our standard renewal update, just give you a quick snapshot of what we've been doing. Right now, we're just at that time period right before the June 30th expirations expire. We did send out the renewal notices for the June 30th expirations. So currently, as of today, we have 1,394 outfitter guides and just over 60 charter boats currently registered. And we have about 100 June 30th expirations that will expire at the end of the June. So that number will go down by about that amount, and then we'll start building back up. We have 25 right now pending for documentation, waiting for them to produce something that we've asked for is missing in their files. We have about 20 that are in the queue waiting for us to work on. So we're processing at about 3 or 4 days right now instead of the 2-week. And then we have about 283 from 2023 that have yet to renew, and that's pretty close to the average number. So this year has been, it's actually been pretty streamlined. We're happy with how it's been going. And welcome Megan. Hi Megan, I'm Cyndi, and glad to have you join us. I will be introducing everybody, especially the new members at the end, closer later on in the agenda. As far as issues in the renewals go, we really, like I said, it's been pretty smooth. So really pleased with the process. We've made a few more changes. We also just unrolled a duplicate application. Sort of, it's an application where guides can go on by themselves and request a reprint of their guide registration or new or duplicate tags for boats or boat rafts And then it produces the fee that they need to pay automatically. It used to be a much more hands-on. They'd have to call, I'd have to put the fee in their cart, and ask, remind them of everything we needed. So now they can do it themselves. We just get a little reminder that we've got these applications submitted overnight, and we can work them up the next day and get them out the door. So it's been great. Saves a lot of phone calls, which is usually my goal for everything. If I can make it easy enough so it saves a phone call, it's good. The enforcement update, we are going to delay till about 2:45. I've got a reminder on my watch, but if anybody sees that I'm not circling back to that around 2:45, Sergeant Dezzo is at a conference, and the only time that he could get out is there should be a break at about 2:45 where he can join us online. So we'll circle back to that. Guess we're at old business already. The TIP program update. We currently have sent out 4 rewards of $200 each. We've had 5 fines deposited, or restitution amounts, checks deposited in the account. And again, the account is held by Oregon Outfitter Guide Association for us because we can't hold the money ourselves. And they take in the request from the court or from OSP to issue a check to the reward recipient. And it's also a great way to keep those rewards anonymous. And it relieves us of the paperwork of trying to issue all those checks. And so we are getting a nice increase to that fund. One of the restitution checks that is due to come in that we'll talk about a little bit more later, but it will be $15,000 to the TIP fund. And that is going to increase our balance significantly. It's going to bounce us up to a balance where we probably would not be. Well, the goal of the fund is to keep it funded through the restitution from the courts, and so that whatever we send out rewards is replaced by the courts in the court adjudication. Can't speak today. So with the extra $15,000, we have tossed around the idea of increasing the amount of the reward. Currently, it's $200 to each recipient, and that is for reporting either a guide doing something illegal with Fish and Wildlife or someone illegally posing as a guide. So the rewards are $200, and I pulled off what currently the other rewards are for Oregon Hunters Association and the Wildlife, got it right here, Oregon Wildlife Coalition. So OHA gives rewards or they give preference points. We obviously can't give preference points. We don't have any. But their dollar rewards go from $200 up to $2,000. A lot of them are 200, mostly dealing with birds, game fish, shellfish. But as soon as you get up into habitat destruction and the larger mammals, bears, elk, deer, bighorn sheep, you get into the higher fees. Oregon Wildlife Coalition is also part of the TIP program, and their rewards are $500 or $1,000. So it's $500 for hawks, falcons, eagles, other protected alien birds, mammals, also cougars, bobcats, beaver, black bears, $500. But then you get into the threatened or endangered species, and it's $1,000 reward. So I didn't know if anybody would like to comment and on the idea of maybe doubling the reward or even going up to $500. The participation has been awesome as far as tips coming in, and I think Joe can attest to that later when he's on, as far as the number of tips that they receive. But again, we can only give one reward for each conviction or arrest. So does anybody have any comments? And I know somebody else joined us, so chime in, please.
Hey, Cyndi.
Oh, hi, Bill.
Hey, yeah, that old link from Jennifer initially that we sent back in May 1st, that is expired. So in case anybody else is trying to get in, that new link that was just sent out happened to work. So that's why I just come on. But as far as what you're talking about here, yes, this program is definitely beneficial, and I like it very much.
Any comments as to the amount you think it should go to?
Well, I don't think the amount of the reward is really kind of too crucial. I know that it probably I didn't quite get the whole gist of where what the reward is, because I came in a little late to what you were talking about.
Oh, sure. So our reward has been $200. And I was mentioning that the fact that the tip fund will be getting a boost of $15,000, which is way more than what's in the balance right now in the account. But comparatively speaking with the other, we're still in line with some of the other rewards. And I just didn't know if we wanted to make it more attractive or if it's fine where it's at.
If we have the ability to make it more attractive, I think we should, because you've seen some of the results that it pays dividends to, which makes me feel like that it would work even better if we had a higher dollar amount. Yes, that is my opinion.
Okay.
So.
Any other comments?
Not yet. I'm just putting everything together.
Not necessarily you, Bill, but yeah, anybody else have any?
Oh, okay, I'm muted.
I agree with Bill.
Okay, good. All right. We will, I'm seeing general head nods, so I will put forth the idea to my manager, Brian, there, and our agency director, and see about raising what it would take for us to raise the tip amount. All right, I am through with that. I'm gonna turn the presentation. I get to take a break from talking. Are you listening to me? Brian Paulson, my manager, is gonna take over a little bit about the guide fees.
Thank you, Cyndi. Let's hope the technology is going to work today for us. So bear with me. And Jennifer, you can nod in if I'm doing it correctly. Nope, I'm not on that one. Let's see. Should be good there.
Yeah, that looks good.
All right. Well, first of all, I guess, Cyndi, at some point we're going to do introductions. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Paulson, for the record. I'm the Boating Safety Program Manager for the Oregon State Marine Board. I'm also the state's boating law administrator. One of the programs that I oversee here at the Marine Board is the Outfitter Guide Program. And today, I want to start collaborating and having just really preliminary discussions with the Guide Advisory Committee about a fee increase discussion. So when the Marine Board talks about fee increases, or when we look at budgets, we look at things on like a 6-year cycle and seeing where we have revenues coming in, expenditures, those type of things. So make sure my slide goes there. So I guess going back, the problem trying to solve with a fee increase is that the Outfitter Guide Program expenditures continue to exceed revenues. And for those of you that have been an Outfitter Guide for a long time, the fee has not been changed in a decade. So back in 2014, it was set at $150. In 2021 to 2023, that specific biennium, the revenues for the Outfitter Guide Program was $756,795. Now, the budget, which is approved by the legislature for the 2021-2023 budget, was $840,827. Now within that number for that budget, that's 2 years of 2 staff members at the Marine Board, service and supplies, and then our contract with Oregon State Police to provide investigative for violations, outfitter guide statutes and rules. The OSP contract for outfitter guide enforcement, we contributed the same amount to OSP in the 2021-23 biennium as we did in the current biennium. So though OSP came to the Marine Board and asked for more money for guide enforcement just to keep that current service level of the 1 staff position, we were not able to fully fund that request for them. For the 2025-2027 biennium, because the state works in at a 2-year budget cycle, OSP is estimating that the current service level for that 1 position for the 2 years is right at $501,881. And so as you can see, the cost of doing business for the outfitter guide program through our contract with OSP continues to increase. And with our current fee structure, revenues have not been keeping up, with the last biennium being about 10% shortfall. And that was with a 97% budget expenditure. So though you might not be aware of fee discussions or even any kind of guide legislation things in the past, there's actually some pretty significant barriers to the Marine Board to change fees for outfitter guides. Now, the first is that fee changes require legislation. So they require revision in our guide statutes. The other piece, which is a significant challenge, is that currently our non-resident outfitter and guide fee structure is built on a reciprocity. And that reciprocity, where we charge non-resident outfitter guides what they would charge an Oregon resident to be a guide in their state, it actually violates interstate commerce laws. And so the reason we're familiar with that is 2 different times we've gone to our legislative council with statute changes proposed for outfitter guides to generally better the guide program. We had a concept for a deckhand designation. We had a surety bond trying to up the limits on that. We've had different things we've tried to improve the outfitter guide program over the last 5 years. And every time we have that, we get, I guess, really a barrier with legislative council that our fees violate interstate commerce. And how the outfitter guide registration is viewed is it's essentially an occupational license. So if we're going to charge more for a non-resident to do business in Oregon via the occupational license, we have to prove to the legislative council that the non-resident is costing the state of Oregon more money to do business in that form of occupational license. So that difference in non-resident versus resident fees, they have to be some way validated, showing an actual burden. And that's essentially that we're charging non-residents more than residents for an occupational license. There's other states that do it, but in regards to interstate commerce laws and how DOJ and Legislative Council interpret that, that is what they have said. We cannot make any changes until we fix that. So those of you that are familiar with outfitter guide fees, it's very specific in our statutes that we charge the fees based on what those guiding services are being performed in other states by Oregon residents. So we charge a resident, $150. We charge a California resident to do guiding in Oregon $652. Now Washington gets a little bit more complicated because you have a differentiation based on the Columbia River, fishing below Longview Bridge, fishing above Longview Bridge, fishing non-navigable. You can see it varies significantly from the top being $2,575 down to a Washington guide pays $150 if they're not doing fishing services. So there's a huge difference in the fees, along with Arizona, Nevada, and then all other states pay $150. So we have that huge difference in fees. So if we were trying to change fees, the one thing that really stands out is we have a small percentage of users that provide almost 50% of the fees. So I put the actual statistics there. So in 2021, essentially 6.9% of the total guides in Oregon were paying more than $150 to be a guide. And that revenue from those 95 guides were 44% of the total outfitter guide revenue for that specific time period in 2021. 2022, it's not much different. 6.8% of the guides are paying more than 150, with that being 44% of the total outfitter guide revenue income. In 2023, you can see it's very, very similar statistics in that it was 6.8% that paid more than the 150 at 42% of the income. So that reciprocity creates a budget challenge if we were to try and change fees to overcome that barrier of the being able to prove, one, that the non-residents are costing Oregon more money to do business in the form of occupational license. So the solutions, that overcome interstate commerce, the first challenge we have is we have, revenues that don't meet the expenditures of the budget, but we also have this interstate commerce barrier where we would have to change the fee structure to be able to touch fees at all. So what does that mean for solutions? One, we'd have to come up with an Oregon resident and non-resident outfitter guide registration fee that is the same amount. We'd have to, and these are, I guess I should clarify, these are all things that we modeled to see what that break-even point is over a 6-year cycle. So we've looked at, having the same fee for all guides, resident and non-resident. We've looked at adding a fee for outfitter guide employees. So currently it's $0. We have some guides that have upwards of 50 employees that we don't charge anything to process all those employees, which does take significant time. We have the non-resident hunt tag program. We've looked at fee increases in the application renewal, and then we don't charge anything for that per unit certification that takes time. Currently it's $0, but we've looked at modeling what a fee for that would be. We've looked at civil penalties, doubling those fines, and then, just so everybody's clear, our staff is working with the governor's office to kind of refine this as a policy option package, but also our board has instructed us to go to the guide advisory committee and talk about this and make sure that, we're refining the work, which is important, in this preliminary discussion. And kind of, I guess, really what the process looks like in the past, agencies, which our agency is an other fees agency. So we collect fees. We don't get general funds. We don't get lottery money. It's purely based on fees. So in the past, we'd submit ideas in the spring for legislative concepts or policy option package or fee increases. And then we waited till late summer, early fall to find out whether they approved by the governor's office. And then we start that work. But now, by working with the governor's office throughout this kind of cycle and these preliminary discussions, it better aligns with what might be approved and able to go forward. The other piece that's important to kind of note here is that the next budget biennium is likely to be more tighter financially than the last few biennium, which will truly impact how fee bills are viewed or approved in general. Our Marine Board, which our agencies governed by a 5-member board, they're aware of this policy option package. They have concerns about really the viability, but they've also, like I said, asked us to work with the GAC and then come back to them in July with more information and what to be considered. So at this time, I'll open it up to discussion. I know that was a lot of information, but I was trying to be as clear and concise and be very open on and kind of what things look like.
Thank you, Brian. These are big numbers, they're big issues for guides. They impact all of the guides tremendously. So it's extremely important that we get as much input as we can from you folks. And again, the next board meeting is July, Brian?
Correct. And since there wasn't a lot of discussion right off the bat, so one of the things I've done, and for those of you who know me, I'm very much a data-driven numbers person. So I've looked at what it would take to break even on all the estimates with our budget and OSP's budget and what that would look like for the 25 to 27 biennium. If we were just gonna make all Oregon residents and all non-resident outfitter guides have the same fee, but not touch the outfitter guide employees as a fee and not touch the non-resident or the penalties or any of that, we're just gonna do that, it would probably be roughly the mid 450s for a year. So approximately $450 a year for an outfitter guide, and that'd be everybody. If we add a fee for outfitter guide employees, if we change the fees on non-resident hunt tag program, and then adding the certification fee, we can get the overall resident and non-resident outfitter guide registration fee down to about $350, and that is modeling it on a 6-year cycle. When you look at a budget from a 6-year cycle, you know, you have the little bit of revenue the first year, that break even, or the first 2 years that break even, that third and fourth year, and then that fifth and sixth year is when you start to cut into that ending balance. And so that's what we've been modeling it on. Obviously, we want to make sure that it's fair and equitable, and we're not, you know, asking for a fee just because we need to make the money. We're asking for a fee that's equitable and fair, and then we can continue to do the work that we need to do within the statutes outfitter guide program in the future. And I guess on a side note, truly, you know, the interstate commerce thing is a real problem, because if a non-resident guide wanted to go, you know, look at this from a legal lens, there's definitely been a lot of things pointed out by legislative council where it's not fair and equitable to people doing business from other states in our state.
Just to clarify a couple things, what has been proposed, like for an employee fee, it would be about $25. It's not exorbitant number, but that's the kind of figure that they're looking. The non-resident hunt tag fees are $75 for the first year they participate and $25 thereafter. And the discussion was to double that, so $150 for the first year and then $50 thereafter. $5 per unit. The unit number of units they're certified in. You know, this is a very small program that has about 60 participants in it, so you know, does not have a huge financial impact. Civil penalties are $200 to $500. So those would be double, but, you know, again, it leaves the majority of the burden on the guide application fee. And again, this is, you know, we do have some time for discussion. We do have time for you guys to think about it and get back to us or propose other ideas that we can look at. But would love to hear any comments you have right now, if you have any.
I kind of have a question, but it's backing up a little bit. What does the OSP outfitter and guide enforcement contract entail? What are they doing?
Good question.
Yeah, Grant, great question. I'll start with that. So the Marine Board's contracts with Oregon State Police Special Investigative Unit. So there's 5 members in that unit for OSP, which are specifically undercover unit that works in enforcement outfitter guide statutes and rules. There's 5 positions. Marine Board funds 1, ODFW funds 3, and DEQ funds the other. So that is, we're funding wages, we pay the benefits. Essentially, when they send us the estimate, it's also service and supplies. So that's fuel for the vehicle, those type of things for one sergeant position. And I will tell you that Cyndi and I work very closely with their team, and we definitely keep them busy with the amount of complaints, whether they're, you know, very evident or something they have to investigate. It's definitely something that is critical to maintain the level of quality of service that we have for enforcement out there in the field.
Thank you.
So I'll make a couple of comments because I'm not actually a member of the GAC. I'm the board representative on the GAC. And so there was a pretty lively discussion at the last board meeting. And one of the concerns is the impact to the fisheries on the border areas. So people who live near the California border, people who live near the Washington border, there is a major concern about the impact of the fisheries and how that is going to be reflected. An additional concern is, of course, not necessarily the increase in the price because it's been so long since there has been one, but that neither of those border states has also instituted anything to do away with the reciprocity. So guides that cross over the border would still also be paying the higher amount in the other state. So there's no equality between the guiding between the states. Anyway, those were some of the major concerns.
If I could mention,
Okay.
I know Washington's fees have not changed in at least the last 4 years that we've been matching their game fish, food fish, and charter fish fees. California did have, they had a higher fee, and when I first started working here, and then it got lowered to the same as, so they got called out on the non-compete, excuse me.
They got called out on the interstate commerce, Cindy.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Interstate commerce. I could not get that word out of my mouth. And they went to court, and I was interested in reading what the justification was, because they now have back a differentiation between the out-of-rate state and the resident fee. And it was because they could prove that California residents were supporting the guide program through other means, whether it's part of taxation or other fees that are automatically paid for by Californians, that non-residents would not be funding. So that is how they justified, and they proved to the court that it does cost Californians more money than what they're paying in a guide fee to support the program. So that's why non-residents will pay that higher fee. Brian can attest to some of my wacky ideas, like, aren't we paying this? Aren't Oregonians paying this for this, whereas out-of-state residents aren't? And we haven't come up with a good, and I've been shot down. So anyway, the idea is that if we tried to prove that we were paying in other ways, we have yet to discover what that is. Bill, I think you had a comment.
I actually have a question. Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
What on the board side of it, of what she was just talking about? Can I ask what the disparities would have been that are being discussed on border to fisheries in general? Are we talking about a detriment to the fisheries as the resource, the opportunity thereof to be able to access the resource? Which one are we talking about that it would be affecting fisheries?
So the discussion at the board, Bill, was that it would be affecting the fisheries, not the access to the fisheries. Okay, because especially down along the California-Oregon border, we have seen a huge influx of California guides here, and that was due to the closure of all California salmon fisheries. Totally. And I know that up on the Columbia that you have also felt some of that.
Yep. So is that going to pertain, are you going to use that same mantra as like what we're trying to do with the Washington versus Oregon debacle? Because I'm not seeing that affecting fisheries so much. What I'm seeing is affecting at least on this is just the pretty much the Columbia I can get down to here. It's affecting the opportunity to access the resource. And that is mainly because Washington fishing guides aren't able to have the ability to establish a career for themselves without getting an Oregon license, because they're forced to do that. Now, I don't think that would mesh with the California mantra, because, you know, you're allowed to be a non-res California fishing guide and not have to pay an exorbitant amount to have a career as a fishing guide and come up here and fish places like the Rogue. But up here in Washington, a Washington fishing guide is completely cow-strung by that whole issue with the Columbia River issue. So I don't really see that affecting fisheries. I see it being overcrowded in certain areas, yes, but I'm not sure that fisheries and the production of fish, or the like when we go to north of Falcon or the U.S. versus Canada fisheries per se, when we set seasons, that's not really the deal. It's the access to the resource. That's what I see. So I'm not sure that when we look at the whole thing, that it's actually affecting fisheries as a whole, other than the amount of pressure being put on fisheries. That's still an access to the resource thing. Does that make sense? That's my opinion. And if I'm unpopular in that, then I would love to discuss it, but that's how I'm kind of taking that.
Can I make a comment on that?
Definitely.
So just from an ocean perspective, that's where I spend all my time. Like the influx of guides from California has definitely affected our fisheries. You know, we're on a quota basis for rockfish. That's our bread and butter. And when you have all those guides forced to come up to Oregon waters, that's an increase in catch on our quota as well for the northern sectors. So we're seeing reduced limits and more people competing against us. So then we are, you know, dropping limits down so we can have a year-round fishery. Next year, they're proposing possibly 4 rockfish instead of 5. And I mean, I'm not trying to cut anybody's access to the fishery, but when you have more and more people coming into Oregon when they can't fish, say, California or Washington, that influx of extra guides and bringing up more people from, say, California does have a pretty big impact on Oregon fisheries. And a lot of the South Coast Oregon charters are complaining about how many new guides are there all the time. And I hear about it up in Newport quite a bit. So I mean, I would say that costs the Marine Board, just in enforcement, more money to deal with. I'm sure that there's more enforcement having to be distributed down there now than ever before, just to deal with new guides and allegations and violations. So those are, I mean, I'm sure you're spending a lot more time dealing with that than you'd like to.
I'm sure I would agree.
I understand. This is Bill again. I understand that, and that's a different. I think that has different connotations down there in that southern zone. That is totally a factor, and that actually does make sense. The Oregon thing, though, the Washington to Oregon debacle, it doesn't. Fisheries don't get drawn back because of an influx of Washington fishing guides. That's not what happens on the Columbia River. What happens on the Columbia River is that Washington fishing guides that aren't allowed to have a charter license in order to be able to make a living below the Longview Bridge, they come to Oregon and they are allowed to have a career because of the fact that they're allowed to have a non-resident fishing guide's license. Now, the amount of money that Oregon State Marine Board takes in because of this is huge, which makes it probably more helpful for them to be able to afford the enforcement thereof and all that other stuff that comes with this really big surplus of income from Washington non-residents. But right now, that is a big piece of Oregon State Marine Board's budget is non-resident Washington fees. So,
Bill, I think we need. Bill,
Yeah.
I think we need to
Go ahead.
just kind of clarify, we're comparing apples and oranges. I mean, you're talking about Washington guides that cannot launch off the Washington Lower Columbia coastline.
Correct.
And that's not the same in California. We also need to make sure we differentiate between resources and overcrowding or overpopulation of guides, because one we can do something about and the other we cannot. And the other is whether or not we have the data to back up our decisions. The only reason, I think that we're having this discussion now is because the Washington guides have funded the program for as long as they have. If we had less of a, more equitable guide fee between cross borders, we would have been having this discussion about raising fees years ago. So there's a lot of aspects, and I think we need to identify maybe where alternatives can come into play or where we need more data. There's a lot of
sorry, Cyndi, you're right. I was just trying to say that up here in this zone, which I'm highly involved with, we don't, fisheries, fish seasons, all the stuff is not drawn back because of a Washington influx. Whereas down there, you see that in the ocean and, Smith's and Sacramento's being shut down. Yes, that is, things are changing down there because of that. Whereas up here, it's not happening. It's just being accepted. So you're right. We are drawing apples to oranges, but we have a definite still discrepancy in this. And then, I've been passionate about this now for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
So I just want to be clear of what the board direction was, because we looked at this at the last board meeting and felt that we just needed to have some information from the GAC of guys that were actually active out there in the field and how they felt about it. So it's the board was not against a fee increase. We just felt like that it needed to be vetted out a little bit more through this committee. And I know you have your 245 coming up, Cyndi, so I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yep.
Thank you. I don't see Joe having joined us yet, so I will keep my eye on that. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just gonna say, you do have one question in the chat, Cyndi.
Thank you. Oh, I think Megan was having problems with her internet. Yeah.
That's me. I can try speaking. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
My internet goes in and out, so we'll try asking my question, but it's in the chat in case you need it. So my area of concern is the outfitter guide rate versus the employee increase, or an employee fee, per employee. And I'm in favor of we have to cover costs, and I'm curious about whether just a flat rate fee increase from that 150 up to that 450 or whatever you're talking about makes sense, or a per rate fee or some combo of both, and thinking about what the staff time involved is, and that could drive pricing. So just curious, that's the question, is what's the staff time?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. That's a good point. We're actually trying to tackle that on two fronts. Employees are very time intensive for us, without having any income driven from it. But we're trying to tackle it both, with the idea of a fee, and then we're also trying to get an idea of what it would cost to have more of a employer portal, owner portal for owners to go in and manage their employees themselves. And it's an idea we've been playing around for a few years, so we'll try and work on that more as well. But I would like to take a break. I appreciate your discussion, and you can tell how complex this issue really is. We have lots of great ideas, but Acting Sergeant Joe Dezo is here with us now, and some of you may know Sergeant Clint Galusha has taken a temporary role higher up, and Joe has been one of our SIU agents for for quite a while, and he's stepping in the role to fill Clint's shoes while Clint is not here. So Joe, are you with us?
Yeah, I am. Sorry, my camera's not on. I'm in an area with limited reception. but hopefully you're hearing me all right.
Yes, great. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, if you'd like to go ahead and give us an enforcement update.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Cyndi mentioned, I've been with OSP for quite a while. I've been with the agency for 13 years, and I've been with SIU for the last 3.5 years as a detective. And so I'm currently the acting sergeant for the unit. And just to give you a perspective of where our unit is at and what we're doing, with me being the acting sergeant, we are down one position in Northwest Region. And luckily, that's not the Marine Board dedicated position. That's one of our other detectives, so he's still very active. But the support role that some of our other detectives have been able to provide him is a little less than, because we have a shorthanded unit at this point. And then, of course, like a lot of folks in state government, we have leave we have to deal with and people going to special assignments. So resources are always an issue for our unit. But despite that, we have been extremely active. We have lots of active cases in all three of our regions. And we've seen some of our cases over the last year finally adjudicated, which I know it's come up lately that sometimes prosecutions are slow, and that's something folks are frustrated with. So that's something I'll talk about in a little bit. But some of these cases that I'm providing dispositions on are from as far back as fall of 2022. Obviously, the big one that is gained a little bit of media attention lately is the Eric Swanson Outdoors case. And so I'll speak to that one first. If anybody hasn't heard on that one, the judgment was two criminal counts of guiding without a license, and that came with a bench probation of 24 months and some fine and restitution amounts. One to the Oregon State Marine Board for $30,000, another to the UGA Tip Fund for $15,000, and then another 5 to the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And so that was one of the big recent ones. And I know there was a lot of talk online about how long that investigation took. And I know there was a lot of people that were anticipating hearing the results of that and getting a little frustrated with the slow movement of enforcement. And so I did want to talk a little bit about like kind of how that happens and why that happens. And, you know, one of our number one challenges, not only in Marine Board cases, but just fish and wildlife cases in general for our entire division, is successful prosecutions. And that's because, one, we have a lot of prosecutors' offices that are overwhelmed with violent crimes, person crimes, property crimes throughout the state. And so they're trying to manage that along with a defense attorney shortage. And so that often creates a lot of delays in some of these court cases. And so that's one of the reasons we'll just see things get pushed off for a while. Also, our unit is extremely thoughtful in what we do. We have some very good investigators who it's very important to them to provide a good comprehensive case to prosecutors. We refuse to just slap stuff together and give it to somebody to clean up later. And so we take a lot of time in our evidence collection and processing to get a lot of these cases out. And one of the biggest components of cases these days is digital evidence, things from computers, cell phones, third-party vendors like Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And all of those things take a lot of time to process and to gather as far as evidence in a case. Additionally, courts are still trying to catch up from 2020. And so we have courts whose schedules are getting pushed way back. So getting on something like a grand jury where you may have a felony forgery case attached to a Marine Board case becomes a little bit difficult just to get on the schedule, even for grand juries sometimes. So one of the things that we're doing as a unit is we are working really closely with a lot of these prosecutors' offices to try to streamline some of these processes, to try to get them prepped to handle large amounts of digital evidence, and kind of give them a heads up when we're starting to work on some of these cases as to the legal issues that they're going to have to tackle, and some of the things that they're going to have to work through that are specific to Marine Board cases. Another thing that we've done is we have engaged a little bit more with the United States Coast Guard in some of the areas that are troublesome for prosecution. Areas like Multnomah County, where things are very overwhelmed in the court system. You may not see a Marine Board case being a priority at the prosecutor's office. And in those cases, we have been able to engage the Coast Guard to help us with some of that enforcement. So along those lines, some of the dispositions are that in September of 22, we received a tip about an illegal guide who was operating scenic tours on the Willamette River. And we worked with the United States Coast Guard very closely on that case. And they actually did the contact with the illegal guide while they were on a guided trip, and was able to do the majority of the enforcement. In that case, the prosecutor's office in Clackamas County actually charged the case, but it was reduced to a violation, and the subject paid a $750 fine. But additionally, the Coast Guard was able to step in and level a $2,500 fine against the individual, and I think they're still currently in collections with the Coast Guard. But so even though we've got a lower level amount out of the county, we were able to get a little more from the Coast Guard enforcement in that case. And then, of course, they don't have some of the resources that we do, so we were able to work as a team and utilize the resources that our team has along with their enforcement capabilities. Another disposition that we had was from a case in December of 23. We investigated an individual that was found to have lied on his 2024 guide application, and that person was interviewed and a criminal citation was issued. In that case, the district attorney's office elected violation treatment also, and the subject paid a $225 fine. And then in March of 23, we worked a case on somebody who was bottom fishing out of Charleston, running illegal charters, and he was contacted by both, again, state police and the United States Coast Guard, and he had clients on board, and he was criminally cited for guiding without a license. And in that case, the district attorney's office actually declined to prosecute, and the Coast Guard stepped in and levied a fine of $225. And that subject has not paid and is in collections in that case as well.
Joe is a great example of how difficult it is, even with all the time you spend in the investigation and enforcement, that it does not get carried through in the court system necessarily.
Yes, it's very frustrating. It's one of the biggest hits to motivation for our folks. And like I said, luckily we have an extremely motivated team that, despite those types of incidents with prosecution, they still keep moving forward and putting together the best cases that we can. In fact, we just worked through and cited 2 guides who were operating illegally along the Umatilla River, and they were getting a lot of interest online from other folks who were saying to them, like, hey, we know you're doing this illegally. You need to do it right. You need to get a license. And there was some talk at the time there online about how come nobody's doing enforcement on that. And what people don't know in that instance is we are working a case. We are working the enforcement angle. And sometimes it just takes time to put together that comprehensive case. So as far as those 2 go, they were actually just cited this week. And so they'll be going through a criminal process in several counties throughout the state based on some of their guiding activities.
Yeah, we had a lot of input from people on that one, as far as, I think you guys were flooded with tips on that. So it's great to see the results. I'm always telling people, you know, I will pass this on to OSP, be patient, you're not going to see anything, but the case will be worked. So
absolutely. And it has been great, especially since the tip fund came into play. We are getting a ton of tips. It's a blessing and a curse. It's great to get the cases, but it's definitely been a little overwhelming with the amount of tips we get. But that's a good problem to have.
So, you know, Joe mentioned Eric Swanson's case, and that his the fines totaled $50,000, 15 of which we've talked about going to the TIP program. The other 30,000, we've actually discussed it internally at the Marine Board as putting it forward towards the contract with Oregon State Police, because we are seeing the length of time for some of these cases to be fully executed, taking longer and longer, and our funds in their contract don't go as far as many of the cases do.
Yeah, that will be extremely helpful, because these cases definitely, even though we only have one dedicated position, they definitely take a team to make work, based on how we do our investigations. And so hopefully that money will help us push a little harder on some of the cases that we're not able to tackle at this point, just because we don't have the resources. Another thing on the, go ahead, Cyndi.
No, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, another thing that came up with the Swanson case was the forged stickers. And we also had that come into play with this other case down south recently. And I'm still seeing folks putting their guide stickers online, both Facebook and Instagram, when they get them. And I can't stress enough that folks should keep any kind of government document that they're issued off the social media space, because even though we've put some great enforcement into it, we will still have people who try to replicate the Swanson method and try to steal other folks' stickers and throw them on their boat. So I just, as much as I can encourage
Joe and
people.
Cyndi.
Yeah,
This is Bill. Can I say something just to that very thing right there real quick, Joe? I'd actually moved to ask that we incorporate a rule into your renewal to prohibit the use of posting when you receive your stickers about how cool you are. And I think that's really great. But it would be nice. We should make that an actual regulation. We should say that this is not allowed to be taken a picture of, and that is actually something that Northwest Guides and Anglers, on behalf of me and them, we were all going to propose that be put into regulation after this case gets done, and it looks like this case is wrapping up. I have one more comment on that case, but I'll wait till after you're done. I just wanted to say that real quick.
Thanks. We'll add that to the list, Bill.
So I think that's really all I have for enforcement updates. I don't know if you have anything else that you were looking for me to mention, Cyndi. I want to make sure I cover everything y'all are looking for.
No, thank you. That was great. I was just going to mention that, the number one comment that we received was with Eric Swanson's case was, is that it? And I had to continually remind folks that the Marine Board can't take any administrative action without the court process being completed. So that being said, we'll continue on. If Joe, that's all you have, I was just going to go over the complaints a little bit. I think if anybody has had any issues with renewals this year, it's just that we're inundated with complaints. And it's typically, well, I won't say it's typically guides against guides, but I just want to say it's very rampantly unprofessional conduct is the number one complaint. And we have had, since our last meeting in January, I've had 8 complaints that we've had to put through the non-criminal complaint process, where we allow, we write the guide that's being complained about, informing them that we've received a complaint, and let them see the complaint and respond with their side of the story. We then, Brian and I, review them, determine if there's any grounds for administrative action, and then respond to both the complainant and the respondent as far as what the final action would be. And honestly, most of the time it can't be proven. It's something that might be more of a civil case. It's not something we could take any action on. But we stress the fact that these complaints stay in the guide's file, and they're important if we find that there is any repetitive or consistent nature of the same complaints coming up for the same guides. So those are important because we have done a suspension based purely on breaches of ethics and professional standards, and that's important. So, Joe, I don't know if you have any last comments or anybody has any questions for Joe. I know he's got to get back to his conference.
I don't think I have any final comments, but yeah, I can hang out for a minute or so here if anybody has any questions. It sounded like there was maybe one other comment or question on the Swanson case.
I do have a question. When the Coast Guard finds the perpetrator, who gets that money?
That's a great question. I don't know where those funds go. I'll be happy to answer that during the next meeting. But I don't know where those funds go.
Probably not the OSMB.
Probably not.
Definitely not. I'll say definitely not on that one. Yeah.
Jack, do you have any idea?
I had a question. You said you have a lot of tips coming in. How many of them do you think are relevant or worth your time percentage-wise? Are you finding a lot that are just complaints or about, they didn't catch a fish, for example, or maybe attitude, or are they serious violations?
So, well, Joe, let me first just say, I go through them and decide if there's anything that is any criminal aspect of, or is something that could actually be cited. If it's not, then we keep it and we run through our process. If there's anything that could be, in fact, one on my list was an unregistered guide or one that failed to register. We sent it over to OSP and they are working it criminally. So Joe, maybe you can, on the volume you get and how many you actually lead to a citation.
Yeah, I would say that probably 8 out of 10 of the complaints that we get are worth looking into, and then probably half that would be like a viable criminal case. It's anecdotal. I'm not. I don't have any stats sitting in front of me, but just off the top of my head, that's what I'd say. We do have some pretty good filters, I feel like, in both what Cyndi sends us and then what comes through our headquarters. That kind of stops the just the general like attitude type complaints or like a single fish over a limit type complaint coming to our unit. By the time it gets to our unit, we're usually dealing with something that's a pretty viable case to investigate.
Okay. The reason I asked is one of your proposals for fee increases would be to double the civil penalties for fines and things. So I'm just curious if that would generate maybe some more complaints, if people were getting rewarded a little bit more that weren't making sense to pursue. But thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you jetting out to do this with us. Absolutely.
Sorry I couldn't be here for the whole meeting. Hopefully next time.
Next time.
And I just want to say thank you to the SIU team. They've really done a great job. It's almost thankless, but we appreciate it when something successful comes out of it.
Thanks a lot. I'll definitely pass it
Mia
along
right
to the
there.
team.
Yeah.
That's awesome,
I know they'll
Joe.
appreciate
Yeah, I'm
hearing
with
that.
Mia.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Take care.
All right. Have a nice one, folks.
Thanks.
Hey, Cyndi, can I make
Yes.
one more, the thing that I was gonna say?
Yeah.
On now that I was hoping Joe would stay, but he's not really going to be a part of this. There's about maybe 300 solid of us out here that have all communicated. I know you're probably not there yet on what's going to happen to Swanson, but we want to make it clear our position in this. I'm in agreement with Northwest Guides and Anglers and the Washington side also on Washington Guides and Anglers Association. They would like to see a full revocation of his benefits for lifetime. They don't want to see, none of us want to see just a couple of years or a probationary period that's granted. We just want that to be known, and that's difficult to say, but it's the popular opinion because all of us play by the rules. And the fact that this was so detrimental to us, it's a shot to all of us. We look very, very it's very difficult right now to have dealings with the public in certain cases because of this. So I just wanted to make that point.
I appreciate that comment, Bill, and we'll make note of that. I will say at this point that we have sent notice to Eric Swanson as far as what our intentions are, and he is still within his time frame to request an appeal of the administrative decision. So once we're through with that, we'll be able to to notify everybody as far as what we've done. But we got to give him his fair pace. So
yep. We heard, and thank you.
All right. I have to apologize. I should have started the meeting with this at the top of the agenda, but we're thrilled that we have a whole new slate, not a whole new slate. We have at least half of our members are new, and we went through a big guided advisory committee recruitment because we had some very dedicated, very awesome members that put in their hard time with us of over 8 years, each of them. So we did send out challenge coins and certificates of appreciation. But again, I want to thank Gary Early, Bob Reese, Joe Rohlader, and I'm going to blank. Oh no, I'm going to be awful.
Jack?
Who did I miss? Brian Sykes. That was the last one. I'm sorry. They've been awesome contributors to our Guide Advisory Committee, and we'll miss them. But we're excited to have new folks. And we also had Randy Turney from the Mackenzie River Guide Association step down, and Jim Blount is no longer guiding, and he was representing the sort of biking community. So we put out a press release asking for applicants for new members. We had an overwhelming response. We had 34 applicants send in their request to be part of us, and they were amazing. Amazing applications. Brian and I had to create a spreadsheet to keep them all straight, and we had both longtime experienced guides as well as brand new guides participate all over this spectrum as far as what type of services they offered. So it was a challenge to pick the new members. We actually even sent out the final finalists, as we would call them, an extra 3 questions to answer, because we just wanted to get a feel for what their thoughts were about the Guide Advisory Committee. So a couple of the questions were like, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing the guiding community, today? Do you see something, what do you see as something you've accomplished in the GAC that would make your term on the committee a success? Or what associations or partnerships or specific life experiences would you bring to the GAC that would benefit the committee or the guiding community? So I think we did a pretty thorough job. I'm happy to have some of the new applicants, new members here, and I appreciate you being here. Jack Craven from Yaquina Bay Charters is filling a big void we've had representing the charter community, which very often, unfortunately, gets overlooked by some of us. They're small in number, but mighty in size. But I thank you, Jack, for participating and agreeing to be the Guide Advisory Committee Charter representative. Do you want to say anything, Jack?
No, but thank you, Cyndi. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll go over the ones that we have here. Corey Marr is our representative for the, I got to go to the meeting for the first time for the Wild Rogue Guide. I was going to say, I'm going to get it wrong, Corey. Wild Rogue Guiding Association? Outfitter Association.
Outfitters Association, yep.
Association. So Corey is our operations manager, and we're happy to have you, Corey. Anything you want to add to?
No, yeah, happy to be here. We do a fair amount of, I'm here representing the outfitters on the road, but I work for a specific company, and it's great to hear that that you guys are aware that we exist down here in the southern part of the state as well.
Yes, they have a great meeting every year, and I was happy to join. And Corey, you can't say you work with Orange Torpedo Chipper, so that's a great addition to the guided GAC. So I appreciate it. We have Megan Selvig, who is with the Opal Creek Ancient Forest Center, which I was really pleased to see you make the finalist, Megan, and I thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
Yeah, hey everybody. Again, if I drop off, I apologize. But yeah, Opal Creek Ancient Forest Center, we are known for Opal Creek expeditions in the summer. So we do youth backpacking, originally out of Opal Creek, if you're familiar with that area. But after the Beachy Creek fire, we've expanded. So we're in 6 different wilderness areas all around Oregon, which has been pretty exciting for both our guides and our kids. They get to see a bunch of the magical places of Oregon. And so, yeah, I come with that lens of youth.
That your story is amazing in that you guys took what could have been a devastating natural disaster and have turned it around to expand your opportunities for kids. And then I have Grant Sheely, who has been a fixture in the guiding community for quite a while. We've relied on Grant in the past. Grant is with Grant's Northwest Guide Service, and he's been my insurance guru for quite a few years. But we're happy to have you join us, Grant.
I'm glad to be here. This is exciting. It's a lot of familiar faces, which is, I think, really fun.
Yeah.
Hope to be of service.
Thank you. I know we will appreciate your dual-sided input. So Grant and his wife have a great insurance company down the Albany area. So we also have, who's not with us today, Jeff Miller, who is the owner-operator of Field and Marsh Outfitters and Kennels. He has been a long-time guide. According to my paperwork here, he's been since 1979, and he's in the Mountain View Parkdale area. So we'll look forward to him joining us. And I think that is all. Oh, and Jeff Keatley, I missed him. Sorry. Don't tell anybody, I forgot him. Bill. He's with Astoria Fishing Charters and up in, of course, Astoria. Longtime guide. He does also represent a lot of guides in booking trips. And I'm hoping he will also take Bob Reese's role in representing the Northwest Guides and Anglers Association. So hopefully we can talk him into that as well. But I'm very excited to have a kind of rejuvenated guide advisory committee with new people, new ideas, new perspectives. So thank you all. With that, Brian has just a short onboarding presentation. He gets to do the paperwork side of it instead of me.
Thank you, Cyndi, and thank you all that attended the meeting today in your service and your role in the Guide Advisory Committee. So I put together a real short, I know it's the afternoon, presentation just to make sure you kind of understand what you got yourself into if you're just joining the GAC. So kind of an outline just real quick here on this presentation, which is available in the materials for the meeting today. One, we're going to talk about what the GAC is, the Guide Advisory Committee. We actually have a charter. It's available on our website, accommodations, what the Guide Advisory can expect from OSMB staff, committee meetings, public meetings law, and then operating principles and guidelines. So the Guide Advisory Committee, in a nutshell, provides guidance and advisory to agency staff and engagement in problem solving for outfitter, guide, and charter industry in Oregon. So the goal is to gain recommendations on various matters that are related to outfitter guides and charter industry in Oregon, because you are the industry professionals. Your perspective, your experiences are much different than what ours is, and we need that perspective and engagement in dealing with the matters. So the Guide Advisory Committee will also comply with all open meeting, public record, and ethics laws as in statute. And I mentioned earlier the GAC charter. I'm not going to go through it page by page. It is a document that Cyndi and I updated earlier this year. The authority of the Guide Advisory Committee and really the makeup of the Guide Advisory Committee is in Oregon Revised Statutes, is also in Oregon Administrative Rules. And that specific charter document includes the purpose of the Guide Advisory Committee, the authority, duties, and responsibilities, very specific committee composition, frequency of meetings, objective of committee meetings, meeting agenda, minutes of meetings, reporting, committee performance evaluation, and tenure of committee members. Once again, that's available. We have a GAC webpage, and you can go through and read that in more depth, and be more familiar with it. Accommodations. So OSMB is committed to providing accommodations that allow all Guide Advisory Committee members to fully participate in the proceedings. Members who would benefit from any accommodations related to GAC meetings, materials, meetings and discussions, or other responsibilities of the GAC, please contact Cyndi. She's the facilitator of the Guide Advisory Committee, and she can be able to make those accommodations. What you can expect from the Marine Board staff, you can expect us to support you through meeting planning, preparation, facilitation, timely communication, coordination between the Guide Advisory Committee and the members. We'll develop and distribute meeting materials. We'll also provide meeting agendas and materials in advance of each meeting, just so you're familiar with them. If you have questions, you can think about it, digest them, discuss them with industry professionals so you're ready for the meeting. What the meetings are about, the objective of the meetings to ensure that Marine Board staff are informed, we're advised, and that we're engaged with outfitter and guiding and charter boat industry professionals. I want to make it clear the Marine Board is a public body, which is defined in statute, and the committee is considered a governing body, which is defined in statute. So that's very important because the governing body has the authority to make recommendations to a public body or administration, but the committee does not have authority to make rules or statutory changes to the Marine Board administration. So that's one of those things that we just need to make sure to distinguish. You're here to make recommendations, advise, and inform the agency and our staff. Public meeting laws. The Guide Advisory Committee is subject to Oregon Public Meeting Law. Public notice of meetings and meeting materials will be provided. Meetings are live streamed and recorded. The public, in this case, is the viewer of the meeting, but they do not participate. And the committee members should only email agency staff only. Please don't email each other, for that matter. And then operating principles and guidelines. I just want to make sure everybody's aware, act in good faith. Let's stay on topic. Let's have balanced speaking time. Address issues and questions, not necessarily people or organizations. Let's discuss topics together. Let's communicate on behalf of the group that you represent. Please attend all meetings. If you have something that comes up, we understand, but just make sure we know ahead of time. And then come to the meeting prepared. We send those materials out ahead of time just so that you're ready for the meeting. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Cyndi? Did you do the orientation all right? All right. I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of understood the role that you have now immersed yourself into if this is your first day on the GAC.
Yes, thank you very much. And speaking of new members, and I apologize for the mix-up in links, but evidently we do have Jeff Keatley on the meeting now. Jeff, do you want to say hi? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I've been watching for about an hour and a half.
I'm sorry about
Link-
that.
Bill was right, the link was wrong, but no, it's, you know, it's great to be here. Appreciate it. I started duck guiding at about the tender age of 6 in 1975. So yeah, I've been at it for a while. So
I appreciate you being with us, and I'm sorry about that. And then, so Jeff Miller, and then we have Jeff Keatley. Jeff, are you actually on?
I'm Jeff Miller. I'm on. And
I know. I think we also have Jeff Keatley on.
Yeah, I'm on. I just
There
am
you
still
are.
trying to. Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I was wondering why this thing didn't seem like it had the controls I would expect, and why no one seemed to be able to hear me for the last hour plus.
you know,
So anyway, hi everybody.
We promise the next meeting will be better for you. I promise. But yeah, Jeff, if you don't mind, just introducing to a short bit.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Keatley, Astoria, Oregon, Astoria Fishing Charters, and been guiding for going on 15 years now, and really happy to be involved with trying to improve. You know, I think the way the public loves us could use some improvement, and that's one of my big goals.
Thank you. Yeah, and both of you, Jeff and Jeff, if you have any comments you want to add about anything that we've discussed that you may have heard and not been able to comment on, we'd appreciate you responding.
I had a question. You mentioned a lot of complaints that are not actionable, and I would love to understand what the difference is between an actionable complaint and one that you can't do anything with.
That's a good question, and it took me a lot of hanging out with a lot of policemen for quite a while to understand that. And essentially, it is something that whether or not an officer would be able to write a citation regarding, you know, you've broken the law, or something that you have not obeyed the ethics and professional standards. It's like you were unprofessional at work. It's not a law. It's not unlawful, but it's against our standards. And we continually have a challenge of trying to enforce our standards. And it takes a lot of repeated action and interviews and documentation, which is quite often hard to get. So typically when someone, you know, it can be hearsay, it can be he said, she said, but things that shouldn't go on in the guiding world, and that we, you know, quite honestly have to say, we know this has happened, but don't do it again, and we'll make record, you know, we'll make record of it in your file. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. I'm figuring out how to get the mic on and off and the camera on and all that kind of stuff here, because my console prior was way simpler than
Yeah.
Thank you.
We didn't give you any controls before, but we can see you and we can hear you, which you're doing well. So you're doing fine. Okay, Jeff Miller, did you have anything you wanted to comment on?
no, did I miss while I was rebooting? Do you guys go back to the fee structure, or you table that for now, or we're going to jump back into that?
I was just going to say, Cyndi, there's two things that we didn't finish. One's the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. And then we also didn't necessarily finish guide fees because Joe Dezo came on.
Correct. Did anybody have any changes or amendments to the previous guide meeting? And I apologize, those of you who are new don't really, it doesn't mean much to you. You didn't attend. So I will take that as no changes and minutes accepted as written. Brian, did you want to continue your presentation on the fees, or do we just want to continue the discussion?
I did go through all my slides on the preliminary fee discussion, but I'm happy to bring any of them back up if we want to just discuss what kind of the sticking points were, or what people thought were going to be the biggest challenges. I think what I heard from the points that were brought up, there's concerns about the number of guides that are on the water, potentially how it impacts access or viability with crowding. There's also resource concerns. But drilling down to the actual fee and the fee increase, those type of things, I just wanted to make sure that we're staying focused on that.
I also want to just mention that I know it took a while for me to wrap my head around the whole process because it has changed. And typically it's been the guide advisory committee and the guide community come up with an idea that we really need to make changes or add fees so we can get more services, or keep our program whole. And then we prepare the legislative concept, and then we go to the legislature and the governor gives her approval or not. And this procedure, because of what the governor has asked for, is different. We actually have to come up with the language and the actual idea after we get the approval to increase the fee. So to me, it's backwards, but it's just different. So I hope you can understand, it's taken getting used to. So if anybody has any more comments about that, like we said, we do have until the next meeting. So I'd say, roughly the end of June to make our comments to the board. So if you all want to think about it and get back to us, email, call, whatever.
I'd comment that I think 10 years or however long it's been since a fee increase is definitely long enough, and it's time. I would also say that the cost of being a guide, the $150 to the Oregon State Marine Board, has always seemed shockingly low to me. And if there's guides out there who would have a problem with paying $350 or $450 to, I'd like to see more enforcement. So if it takes more money to do that, I'm in favor of it. So I guess raise the price. I mean, that's my take. If somebody doesn't want to be a guide over $350 or $450, great. That's my personal opinion. So for those of you that don't know me, you may hear some occasional strong opinions and original ideas. And if I'm offensive, I'd sure love to not be. I'm not trying to be. I think I'm not, but I have ideas that might be new or different that I am going to present from time to time.
We appreciate that. The idea, I think Brian has quite often told me, typically the cost of a guide registration was typically the price of a seat on a boat, which obviously has changed in the last 10 years.
And
Cyndi, I'm intrigued.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued by this per employee fee. I've been mulling this over, and I think I'm in favor of keeping a general fee pretty low, and the employee fee is where we could gain some of those costs, because I'm imagining a small guiding company of 5 employees versus a large guiding company of 30, 50 employees. They have different budgets and different overhead. And so that seems like a fair way to price this out.
It's a good comment, Meg.
And one thing, sorry, Cyndi, I'll just talk for a brief moment. One thing that sometimes is hard to articulate, the majority of guides in Oregon are fishing guides. I think we're around 80% roughly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cyndi. So if you're guiding for fishing, you have to have an individual guide license. If you're a hunting guide, you might be an employee of a guide who has to only have that $150 license, but you're an employee and you paid $0 to Marine Board to be able to go out and guide, because we don't charge for employees. We also don't charge for them to be a guide even though they're out there. So oftentimes what we hear from OSP is, why does the Marine Board charge $150 to be a fishing guide when, one, the hunting guides going out there and potentially having more risks with a customer, whether we're doing a background check, those type of things, and they may not be paying any fee because they're guiding as an employee underneath that guide who paid $150. Does that make sense?
I think I just need to clarify that in the current setup, all guides need to pay the $150, but only fishing guides who have employees who are providing fishing services their employees need to be individually registered as guides. So a fishing guide with a deckhand, they both pay $150. A hunting guide pays $150, but he may have 20 employees working under him individually, independently out in the wild, and none of those have to pay a fee. So
hey, Cindy,
yeah.
that brings up one more idea. My girlfriend's my deckhand and a registered Oregon fishing guide, and you mentioned that I book for other people. After the accident that happened with Pro's second boat, I stopped doing that. I just decided that taking $150 a day from my buddies to take on more liability didn't make sense for my business, and so I have a referral list, but I don't book other companies anymore. But one of the things that has come to my attention is that there are guides out there who are not following the rules, and they're registered agents. So we've talked about employees, we've talked about guides. What we haven't talked about is agents. So for instance, there's one well-known charter operation that drives me crazy that represents himself as a local all up and down the coast, and I don't know where else, and doesn't run 98% of his own trips, and doesn't represent himself as a booking company, and does not show up. I noticed when I typed in to download the list of registered guides that there's like 8 of me, or 10 or 12, because of all the guys I used to book, and he has 1. So maybe there should be a fee for agents. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe people's feet should be held to the fire if they're not telling you about all of their agents. And I'd be happy to tell you now or later, whichever you prefer, who I'm talking about, in case you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great comment, and it's something we can certainly look into. We've certainly thought about surety bonds for agents, since they're taking fees and being responsible for them instead of the guy. But
well, and the ethics of representing yourself. I mean, I can give you people who have gone out with me who thought they were going out with him, and they showed up and found out that it's somebody that neither one of us have ever heard of from somewhere above Bonneville, taking them sturgeon fishing in the estuary or buoy 10 fishing. And they had no idea they weren't going with the main man. And that, to me, is an ethical problem that I don't care for at all, especially when he represents himself as a local here. And I see him once a year, maybe.
Right. That's a good point. And we also need to look at how statutorily how we can tackle that problem. So, we can only do what we have authority to do. So if we can fit that in, figure out how to fit that into our guiding rules and laws, then
I'm just curious if you guys can nod your heads yes or no. Do you agree with me that it's an ethical problem to represent yourself as a guide when you're actually a booking company? Yes or no? Is that a problem? Does nobody else care?
Sounds like a statutory problem as much as anything else. And enforcement.
I agree with the problem.
Yeah, and it's a problem. I have a question for you, Brian, nuts and bolts. Have you looked at a trend line for expenses moving forward? And are we looking at capping, say we raise the rates to 450, which I'm good with. Are we looking at capping that or reviewing it at some point in time after 2 bienniums or 3 bienniums or not 10 years? And what's the trend line look like for expense? Are we going to be able to cover it? The nut, so to speak, at that point?
Yeah, great question, Mr. Miller. And so what we do and what we call the CFO and the legislatures and folks, what they look at is specifically us budgeting on a 6-year cycle. And so you have this bell curve of where the expenditures go up, you meet that line, and then you start to dip down into your ending balance. So the one thing here that we can't predict is the number of guides in Oregon going to continue to increase on where it is now? Because if we raise our fees, and we know what our inflation rate is that we generally get from the state, is that going to keep up with inflation, or potentially is there going to be economic impacts for the number of guides in the state decrease? Whether it's fishing seasons being compressed, shutdowns, those type of things. So we model everything, and then we put that trend line in there on that modeling to make sure that we go to the CFO with a proposal that satisfies their criteria on what they think for budgeting, but also satisfies what we can operate at. We're not operating for a profit. We're operating to provide current service levels. Does that make sense?
It does. It's just everybody knows here that's in business the spiral of inflation. It doesn't look like it's going to stop today. They pegged it even higher, and so that's the crunch. And so you guys are faced with that same problem too.
Yeah.
The one thing that's a little bit tough for us, and like I said, we've done a ton of modeling, is we'd be adjusting multiple fees, right? It's not just one fee, it's multiple fees that have different levels of impact, whether maybe we only have 50 people that this fee is going to impact, or maybe we only have 1,800 people that it impacts. So we have all these different models we've looked at, with changing the fee to where it's straight across the board, and it also increases for Oregon guides. Are we going to see a decrease? We talk about guiding all the time here in the office. We talk about the impacts to the 6-pack guides that are the weekend warriors that all of a sudden are guiding on the ocean with their 6-pack boat, doing 2 trips to rockfish. I mean, we look at that from a safety component. We look at it from a lot of different things, and we've all taken that into consideration when we're trying to build out this budget.
As far as fees go, Cyndi, currently, like I've got 3 guides listed on as a hunting guide. Do those numbers would fall under the purview of employees or staff for this fee, or would you include that? I mean, I think it's a good idea, but I don't think the hunting guides get off scot-free.
So either we've had 2 suggestions. One is that they just become, there's just a fee to register as an employee of a guide. And the other is that hunting guides should be as closely regulated as far as being individually registered as fishing guides. Both are up for discussion. So I think hunting, because of the number of employees, the fact that most of the time they're independent, operate independently of the owner or the registered guide. I mean, I know with whitewater rafting, you have a lot of employees, but typically they're not solo in the field. There's more, they may not be the owner, but they may have, usually they're in groups. So there's a lot of room for discussion, a lot of points that can sway either way.
Thank you.
So I had a question, because the boat fee increase is coming up again for becoming a POP. Is that going to be the same biennium? It's always a concern when there's too many POPs.
So Val, I'm not aware of any fee increase that you just mentioned. Out of what our agency is talking about now, it is strictly guide fees. So I'm not aware of anything. So if there was, that's probably an entire biennium away.
That must be. I mean, I was trying to go back on to how many years ago it was that we passed that fee increase, and so I couldn't remember if it was 4 or 6.
It was, if memory serves me, it was 2019. It went into effect in 2020.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
You bet.
Well, if there's no other comment, there certainly is room to think this over and mull it, and please submit your comments or ideas or perspectives to us. We will have to go back to the board with your responses, so I appreciate you participating in it. I don't want this to be Brian and my opinion about what we should be doing, so.
Cyndi, I'd like to say something if you don't mind.
Please do.
I just kind of think about it. I think you definitely have to start charging something for employees. Obviously, you have some expense there that take up. I know that I use some of that expense when I'm sending deckhands in for background checks and stuff. So I think, you know, $25 is kind of cheap for that. I know that you're spending some time on it, so you definitely have to do that. And I think coupling it with some fee increases for guides is good, and charters, and definitely, you know, maybe increasing fines, civil penalties would be a good way to moderate some of that for some people. It's not like one of these fees is going to break anybody, but in my industry, it's a higher standard for inspected charter boats. It's just we keep getting stacked with newer ones all the time. So anything to just kind of moderate a little bit, because no one of these fees is going to break anybody's back. It's just everything added together. So if civil penalties were a way to lessen it a little bit, that's great. Obviously, you guys are having to do more and more work all the time with more and more guides and outfitters. So some way to just spread that out probably would help out a lot of people.
Thank you. That's a great comment.
Yeah, real quick, I meant to comment when the state policeman, I didn't write down his name and my memory's not awesome, but when you guys were talking about these fines for these illegal guides being $250, $200, $400, that blows my mind. Those guys, that's the cost of one seat. I mean, that should be way higher, in my opinion.
You're right. And that's what happens when the court reduces a misdemeanor to a violation. I mean, I think a misdemeanor can be charged up to $1,600, I believe. And violations are just a fraction of that. And so it's a constant education of the district attorney's office and about stressing the importance of wildlife infractions and, you know, guide infractions within that. We do have a special prosecutor that is a Fish and Wildlife prosecutor, Jay Hall, who is, you know, state hired within the TIP program to work across the state and to help make those bigger cases that are across county lines and to stress the importance of Fish and Wildlife laws. So, I mean, I'm going to Klamath Falls at the end of the month just to testify at a poaching case. So it's important to keep those misdemeanors and not get them reduced to violations.
And one thing, Cyndi, I just want to add, you know, earlier when I was talking about barriers, we have a lot of concepts that we have put a lot of time and effort in that we can't send through the legislation that will help the outfitter guide program. Talking about the special prosecution, if you're a poacher and you're doing fish and wildlife violations, there's very specific statutes for forfeiture, whether they take your truck, your boat, you know, those kind of things, your livestock. There is no such thing in outfitter guide violations in regards to forfeiture statutes. OSP would like to have forfeiture statutes within the outfitter guide statutes so that, say you're guiding illegally, we could take your, you know, OSP through things could take your boat, they take your truck, you know, take those kind of things. We can't make any of those changes on outfitter guide stuff until we fix the fee structure, which violates interstate commerce.
There you have it. Sorry about that. I'm sure we could discuss this for a whole long more time. Unfortunately, I have an appointment at 4 o'clock. If anybody, like I said, please send in your comments, talk amongst, you know, your cohorts, and we're appreciate any and all ideas.
I would even offer up, Cyndi, if the GAC would like to come back and talk about this in June, I know our next board meeting is not till towards the latter part of July. But I'd be happy to come back. You know, we can Cyndi can do a poll on which day and time works better. I know everybody's guiding those kind of things, so we can get creative. But I would, you know, put the vested interest in coming back in June and talking about this more. You can think about it, talk to the groups that you represent, you know, the additional guides that, you know, industry professionals, then come back and have a broader discussion about it. And then, you know, the intentions is that we're collaborating with you while we're still working with the governor's office through our process.
Yeah, on that note, we didn't have anything for new business, but we did have an idea, you know, what would you like the next meeting to be? So if anybody has any suggestions. Do you want me just to send out a poll saying, should we have a meeting in June? And if so, which dates will work? How does that sound? Okay, I'll do that. All right, unless there's any last comments, I think we can sign off.
Thanks, everyone.
I so appreciate you being here. It's been a great conversation. Thank you all.
Thanks, Cyndi and Brian and the rest of you guys. Thanks.
All right.
You're very
take care,
welcome.
all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.